probably cool with that.
With the draft deal, which means the draft deal, so they have the box on the inside of the cage. Right. Right. So that's going to change like the game a little bit, just a little bit in a way that we haven't anticipated. You know, Aljo goes for a fucking guillotine, looks at the clock, and Oliver's like, oh, that, no.
Aww.
Stipe's gonna be like, Stipe's gonna do what DC would say, like, oh, straight out it.
Francis got him reach across.
Yeah, I tell you what, when those two fight in that cage, it's gonna look probably explosive.
Anyway, I don't think it's going to off the way. I don't know.
I'm already on the yeah, this part right here. You know, some rats just I swear. But you're right, you come and smell too like this. That's the only English in here. Good. He's hard,
Well, then, you know, you can you know,
those are just like it's really similar to
Not with this.
but it's new, it's just
But I thought somebody else.
But it just got started this week, so I'll probably do it again.
Oh yeah, for a while.
I had it since like this whole year just
Hi, hi. Oh. Yeah. Thanks for running that. Good. I'm glad that all the weigh-ins happened so fast. I feel like I've never...
35.
Whoa.
It was like 10:25, and we were done at like 25.
And you're like, okay. I mean,
Nice.
that's not bad. Not bad.
Standing around.
Yeah, I didn't know we didn't have any
One
Happy
mess.
wait.
Right.
Usually they be like, come in right now.
Wait, I'm gonna have breakfast, take a shower, relax. Everybody else will be done. Get on
You
the
have to
scale
like,
so they can.
so they can like drink anything, like nothing spoiled.
Well, I mean, if they're
That makes sense,
but
yeah.
if you just made weight, like
Yeah, anything.
126,
Yeah.
186,
Yeah.
then no, drink some water. That's gonna
So hard.
it is.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun though. Are you staying at the hotel? Tonight?
I
Yes. I would literally be fine with somebody monitoring.
might be my laptop.
I left it. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No, he pops in. He does the face-off last week. So let's switch it up. I think it just, I know. It depends. I think Eric just does his social with the phone, but Elliot's the one But no, he's still, he's great. Good to have you back, brother. You should always talk. No, I'm never up there, so I don't. It's a little confusing, but it's good. Like, once you get into it, it's actually pretty robust. How you doing, man?
I got him during Friday, a couple of years ago.
Oh, really? What was the position?
My twin brother actually sold his.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, thank you all for being here. UFC President Dana White is in the building, ready to go with the stare downs for UFC 259, Blachowicz versus Adesanya. 15 fights coming your way live on Saturday night. We'll begin with the UFC Fight Pass prelims. First out of the chute in the bantamweight division, Mario Bautista versus Trevin 5-Star Jones. All right, next up in the UFC's lightweight division, Uroš the Dr. Medic versus Alan Cruz. All right, next prelim comes your way in the UFC women's strawweight division. 15th ranked Lavinia, the Brazilian Gangsta Souza versus Amanda Lemos. All right, next up in the UFC welterweight division, it'll be Sean Brady versus Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews. All right, at light heavyweight, Kennedy African Savage Nzechukwu versus Carlos Black Jag Ulberg. All right, and the featured bout of the early prelims in the UFC flyweight division, 12th ranked Tim Elliott versus Jordan the Gamer Espinosa. All right, our next four prelims at UFC 259 can be seen live on ESPN. First out of the chute in the flyweight division, Rogerio Bonturin versus Kai Don't Blink Kara France. All right, next up also at flyweight, second-ranked Joseph Benavidez versus number 3 Askar Bullet Askarov. All right, next prelim comes your way in the UFC's bantamweight division, Song Yadong versus Kyler the Matrix Phillips. And our featured prelim also at 135 pounds, the former two-time UFC bantamweight champion Dominic Cruz versus Casey Kenny. All right, now we get to the main card, live on pay-per-view, UFC 259, Blachowicz versus Adesanya. First up in the light heavyweight division, two of the division's top four, Thiago Marreta Santos versus Alexander Rakic. All right, next up, at lightweight, 14th ranked Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober. All right, now we get to the first of three UFC title fights coming your way tomorrow night. First up for the undisputed UFC Bantamweight Championship, the champion Piotr No Mercy Jan in his first defense against the #1 contender Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling. And with that backdrop, we get to the co-headliner for the UFC Women's Featherweight Championship, Amanda Nunes, making her second defense at 145 pounds against the challenger Megan Anderson. And finally, our main event, champion versus champion for the UFC's undisputed light heavyweight title, Jan Blachowicz in his first defense against the UFC middleweight king, Israel Adesanya. Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya, your main event tomorrow night at UFC 259, live on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. 15 fights, folks. Buckle up. We'll see you tomorrow night.
No worries. See you soon.
I'm gonna go back under and behind you, alright, Ken? Thank you. Ow.
John. Give me some tape.
Almost out. Almost out. They push it back.
Jon, are the rumors true that that you've been pushing for 20 fight cards because these 15s are just too easy for you?
Fight number 16 tomorrow night is me versus Mick Maynard, actually, after him putting 15 fights on this card. It's been a tough year, and obviously this is a byproduct of that, I think, in some respects. The biggest challenge for me from a play-by-play standpoint is that I just was here and did, 9 fights last week. So the preparation has been a little bit condensed, but 30 fighters, Johnny. I'm probably going to miss something,
I guess for like aspiring broadcasters, people that want to do what you do, give us an idea, like how much preparation time goes into, researching a 15-fight card?
For aspiring broadcasters, go do football, because the first half is over in 90 minutes. Then you get like orange slices, and then you're out of there an hour and a half later. So, no, I mean, we're on a headset for 8 hours tomorrow night. So I would tell aspiring broadcasters to buckle up and get ready. But as Brian Stan, my longtime broadcast partner, would always say, it's an open book test. You might as well show up with some damn notes. So I have more notes than I know what to do with right now. But, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll look at my cards. I'll see who I'm light on and maybe do a little bit of last-minute preparation. But tonight's going to be a bear. I mean, I probably won't stop banging keys until like 2 o'clock in the morning. But this is the devil I know, baby.
Yeah. Also, I guess for people that want to feel your shoes some days, I mean, how do you balance energy, right? Like, I mean, you just said 8 hours. That's a unique thing, right? That doesn't happen in sports broadcasting.
I remember the first day I was hired, Craig Borsari, my boss, said to me, you got to leave room in your register as the fights get bigger. You can't just blow it out for the first prelim of the night. That's easier said than done. I mean, you can be sure if something special happens between Trevin Jones and Mario Bautista, I got to let it rip. And if the voice is compromised or the energy's compromised, so be it. So I do try to monitor the energy a little bit early on, and I often find in a 3-man booth, there may be fights where I'm asked to do a little bit more. I try to feel out my analysts, and I feel like if their energy starts to wane, I got to be there to pick them up. But nothing can condition you for this exercise in play-by-play other than actually going through it.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be a long one. But I know you love the sport. I know you love the story. So these 3 title fights, right? Each of them so interesting, I think, because there's such a unique dynamic between all 3 of them. Is there one of the stories of the title fights that speaks to you more than the other?
Well, I said this morning, and some of you were within earshot, every time Amanda Nunes fights, every time Khabib Nurmagomedov fights, they are putting their legacy as a greatest of all time type.
There's so much attention on the top 3 fights. I think the other 12 aren't really getting much love at all. So is there one fight or one fighter, a storyline, a nugget that you unearthed in your research? I mean, something that you're most kind of like anticipating or think people should be paying attention to?
Well, in a lot of respects, it's moving night in the flyweight division and in the bantamweight division. So I would certainly keep an eye on those 2 weight classes. But it's hard for me to go in any other direction with this question other than Dominic Cruz, because I've probably spent more time with him than any man or woman on this roster. So I know him acutely. I know him intimately. I know the challenges that he had in coming back in a championship setting back in May. And it seems as though he was able to put in the requisite work this time around. Doesn't mean it's going to produce the desired result, but it seems like his body held up. His speed is there. Was a little bit of a tough weight cut, but I'm excited to see what he can do. Casey Kenny's the favorite, and I think deserves that distinction. So maybe a cop-out answer, Johnny, but the featured prelim's the one that jumps off the card for me.
You know what I'm going to ask you? What do you make of Jon being the underdog as the defending champ? He hasn't, looking at his past few fights, it seems like fans expected his opponent to win, like Rockhold, Jacare, Dom. They wanted to make a name off him. Jon is once again the underdog, even though he is the defending champ.
Yeah, I didn't know which Jan you were talking about. Looks like Piotr Jan might actually close as the underdog as well. But yeah, Jan Blachowicz about a 2-1 underdog, and I think the fight is properly priced, if I'm being honest. I think a lot is going to be made of Israel Adesanya's size. He told us in our fighter meeting that he is going to go back to 185 pounds after this fight. He probably told you the same messaging. But if he was to move up to 205 with finality, then he would progressively put on muscle and maybe would walk in there at 215 or 220. I think Jan Blachowicz might have more ways to win. So if you're looking at him from an underdog perspective in that way, he's got a lot of ways to win. And I think if he is able to take Izzy down, we're going to get a real lens into how the fight could play out early on. Can he take Izzy down? Can he keep him there? Is he able to really out-muscle him on the ground as he thinks he'll be able to do? So a lot of interesting layers. But if you were looking for me to stand up here and say I think that Blachowicz is a live underdog or deserves more respect from odds makers and bettors, still resonates. I guess my concern on the Sterling side as a bettor would be you're talking about 88 seconds of fight time in the last 20 months. So I know the Hayes in the barn, he's put in a lot of great work with a lot of great training partners, but not a lot of octagon time in the last couple of years for Aljo, so I think that bears watching.
And
finally, I think outside of Amanda, Islam Makhachev is the biggest betting favorite. He hasn't fought in a long time. Drew's obviously been active. So how much are you looking forward to the lightweight fight, too?
Can't wait to see what Dober can do with the opportunity. And for Islam Makhachev, I know the number 14 is the one next to his name, but I think he is ubiquitously regarded in this sport as a top 5 guy. And I know Drew Dober feels like the opportunity that is in front of him is not just fighting the number 14 guy in the world. So I know Daniel Cormier is not the only one who thinks Makhachev is a future UFC champion, but Drew Dober should not be plus 380 against any man at 155 pounds in the world right now. Look at his current form. He's been building methodically to this moment. So I think there's value on Drew Dober, and you know, Islam always getting that respect from bettors and odds makers alike.
Right here, John, to your left. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Fight Island kind of got the press and the headlines during the pandemic for being very helpful to the UFC, but the UFC Apex, where we are right now, has been crucial to the UFC. What are the advantages for you from a broadcast perspective of being here at the Apex?
That's a good question. They're minimal. I mean, I guess it's an easier navigation to go to the bathroom, but I would always prepare to have 25,000 people in this building. But yeah, I mean, I think coming here, it feels like I'm coming to the UFC headquarters. I know exactly where my bosses are. So it's Groundhog Day in terms of the COVID testing and going through the routine. But we're used to it now. But oh man, I look forward to getting stuff. Isn't it amazing that we have this facility, right? Thank goodness we have this facility and are ready to go with all of these live events. I've only been in the new studio once, but whole lot of bells and whistles there. Reminded me a little bit of actually our old studio at Fox back in the day. So I'm excited to be here. I still wish I lived here, as many people know. But I'm just so thankful that we have the staff we do in this facility because, I don't know, we'd be scrambling trying to figure out where to put these things. So it's good to be here, man.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
John over here. John, when you obviously commentating, it's also part of the job, not just, what's going on, but the storylines going in. When you have these kinds of fights, you've got Jan Blachowicz, obviously respect him, but we know Israel Adesanya wins. It sets up this world of possibilities of big fights that people are excited about. As the commentator, how do you balance making sure you're giving both of their guys the love in real time?
Well, I think that's always our initiative, is to try to play it even-handedly and to try to give both guys as much credit as humanly possible. Jan Blachowicz is the incumbent. He's going to be the last guy to make the walk here tonight, so you can be sure that he's going to get all of that respect and then some on the broadcast. And, he has visions beyond Adesanya, too. I mean, it just so happens that his first title defense is coming against a guy who has vaulted to superstardom and is all the rage with all sorts of different people and all sorts of different walks of life. But Jan Blachowicz wants to be in the UFC Hall of Fame, and he ain't going to get there if he doesn't beat Israel Adesanya. So that's one motivated man with a lot more than power. He's got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt he can lean on too. So you can be sure we're going to dive head first and give Jan Blachowicz his due. I mean, I married into a Polish family. I'm going to put the Polish guy over.
I hear you. Finally, you talked about it. This is a lot of fights. You got to pace off. What are some of the things that people may not know that you do? Do you drink a special tea during fight night? Is there something, you try to keep your word count low? Tell us some of the tricks to make sure you're still good by the time Jan Blachowicz walks out there.
You guys are giving me a lot of added anxiety, reminding me that we have 30 athletes who are going to make the walk. But there is some pacing that goes into that. I don't drink too much during the broadcast because I may not get a break to go to the bathroom. I drink water, coffee, tea, a little bit, just sipping it here and there. But there's adrenaline that sort of plays into it, thank God. So I do think that the results sometimes can help your energy and be a performance enhancer. We had 7 straight decisions to close the show last week, and even though some of those fights were great, that's certainly not doing anything to help your adrenaline and your energy. So hopefully we get some finishes, man. Thank you.
Somebody open up my microphone. Turn the volume up on my microphone.
DC, former 2-division champion, right? We got a guy trying to do the same thing. Give me an idea. I mean, Israel seems like the most confident human being on the planet, right? But is there some kind of mental doubt, some kind of, mentality that he's going to have to, overcome when you're stepping up a weight class?
I don't think that the doubt or any of that stuff is present right now because normally, listen, most fighters have a little bit of doubt. There's like, I hope, but the moments that he'll think mostly about this stuff is the private moments when he's by himself tonight, when the coaches are all gone, the quarantine has started, and you're in there by yourself thinking about how big a moment is right at your fingertips. So he is confident. This is a guy that doesn't doubt himself much, but this is a big ask, man. And it's in those quiet moments, though. Tonight when it's 11:30, 12, you can't sleep, knowing that you have a full day. Middle of the day tomorrow, after you get up, before you head to the arena. Those are the moments where you start to ask those questions about, can you get this big thing done?
How about physically, once the fight starts, right? I mean, how different do human beings feel in different weight classes? I mean, do you notice it right away? Like, oh my God, this dude's way stronger than anybody I've been fighting.
Well, it's to the person, right? Because for me, Stipe wasn't all that big. I might have weighed more than him the first time we fought. So you feel the difference in the power, right? You can tell that they punch a little harder when you're used to something. But it just takes time to get started. Once you get started, get used to the power, used to the speed and the pace at which the fight's going to take place, it's just another fight. These guys have fought and competed their whole lives. So nothing is really going to surprise them. And you got to remember, Izzy's fought at heavyweight. Izzy's fought heavier guys. So this won't be that difficult and different for him.
Yeah. You touched on the heavyweight, right? Him and his team are saying they win here, they might even look to go up to heavyweight. Is that pure insanity, or can he accomplish that in the UFC's heavyweight division too?
Not necessarily, because he's a tall guy. If he was short, maybe it would seem like, this dude can't fight 85 and then heavyweight. But he's done it before, right? And I think ultimately you have to make sure that it's the right kind of matchup if you're playing with heavyweights. You don't want to be fighting heavyweight with Francis, as a guy that's coming from 185. But for the right matchup, yeah, why not? I believe that this kid can do whatever he wants. I think he's just that good.
Yeah. And if he does that, I mean, if he were to win on Saturday and go up to heavyweight, whether it be Stipe, whether it be Francis, whether it be Jon, let's say he takes a heavyweight title too, in 2 fights, could we be talking about this guy as the greatest of all time?
Well, I mean, I don't think he would go up to heavyweight in 2 fights. That's crazy, right? You can't go from 185 to heavyweight in a matter of fights. I think it would take some time. But I think this speaks, honestly, this line of questioning speaks to who Israel Adesanya is. That's even a conversation, that he could attempt to do something that outlandish. There was a time where nobody thought being a 2-division champion was possible. Now we're talking about a guy that may pursue 3 titles, and talking from a 20-pound jump to a 60-pound jump. That just speaks to the level of athlete that Adesanya is.
I know you love storylines and promotion. Out of these 3 title fights, they're all very unique. Is there one of them that speaks to you more than the other, that, just like the story coming into it?
I love the 2-division champion story. I think that's always special. But I do love the bantamweight title fight. Those guys don't like each other. They've been going at it over social media. They told me Piotr just told Aljamain he's going to fucker him up. So that's like a cool thing, I like it. I like the bad blood. I like that these guys don't like each other. I like that Piotr's trying to speak English. And although broken, it makes its point. Aljo heard it. He knew what he meant. So I love this fight, man. I love the style fight. I love the differences in where they're from. I love the different approaches in fighting. I just think there's so many layers to this bantamweight title fight that you cannot sleep on it.
Last thing for me, and I think I might know what you're answering here, but the 3 title fights everybody's talking about, but there's 12 other fights as well. Is there a name on there that stands out to you that we need to be paying attention to? I think I might know who it is.
There are a lot of guys, but Makhachev and Dober. I know you guys call me a homer, for my guys, but I've seen this kid work for so long, and he's so good, man. I think that consistency, if Islam can get out in front of people consistently, then you will start to appreciate what he is. Remember, same thing with Habib. Habib was hurt for years and years and years, and then Ramadan and all the other reasons why the guys go away. But the moment he was consistent, he became the greatest fighter in the world. And I think that Islam has a lot of those same traits.
Hi, Daniel. Do you look at this fight in the main event and think, for Israel, it's almost perfect he's coming off the Paulo Costa fight, right? Because that's a big, heavy hitter who's also massive at middleweight. And if you look at stylistically, him and Jan kind of seem similar. Is that the perfect fight to come into?
You look at Paulo Costa and you think that because of the size, it could be comparable. Jan Blachowicz is a whole different animal. I mean, I watched Jan Blachowicz knock out Dominic Reyes going backwards with his offhand. That speaks to the power of who Jan Blachowicz is. This guy landed that right hand against Corey Anderson. Corey went to sleep. He landed that uppercut on Luke. Dude went to sleep, but that was his power hand. Then he goes and knocks out Dominic Reyes with a left hand, the offhand. So there is no equal to him in that sense in terms of who Izzy has seen in the UFC. He hasn't felt the power that he's going to feel on Saturday night if Jan's able to land. So while you may say there's similarities, this is a completely different fight because Jan just fights a different way. He's going to plow forward in a smaller octagon, trying to get at a smaller guy in Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, you kind of speak me to the punch there. If you look at his cage, do you think it favors Blachowicz?
I do believe it favors Jan. It's easy. It will be easier for him to set traps. You know, there won't be as much space for Izzy to operate in. For Adesanya, even though he has proven to be extremely tough, right? We saw him go through the 5th round with Gastelum when he was beat up a little bit. We saw him deal with Robert Whittaker in the fashion that he did, where he stood in there. He stood in there with Paulo Costa, but there was space if he needed it. In this octagon tomorrow night, he will be forced to stand with Jan in much closer vicinity than he probably needs to or wants to.
And last thing for me, if you get to decide you can book Jon Jones versus Israel, do you do it at light heavyweight or do you do it at heavyweight to make Israel really chase that glorious moment?
Man, let me tell you something. These guys seem to be on a collision course, right? I know what that feels like. You know, I know what Izzy feels. It's frustrating. You want to get your hands on the guy. But ultimately, if you're Team Adesanya, you don't give him all the advantages, right? You make him, if he's gotten so big, you make him come back down, right? We didn't fight at heavyweight when I was undefeated. He said it, and I did it. Come down to me. If you're going to talk so much, come down to me. So I went down to the weight class that he was performing in. Izzy needs to make sure that he doesn't give any of the advantages. And he won't. He's smart. His team's smart. He's going to fight him on his terms. And I think that's why you see a lot of the reactions from Jones, because he has a guy now that isn't willing to dance the dance that he wants to dance. Izzy's going to do what he wants. And that's the approach he needs to take.
Just to follow up on that, do you think it says something? Do you think Israel could have learned from your rivalry with Jon?
Well, I don't think he learned from me because, like, there's nothing to learn from me. I did it all wrong, right? I went to the playing field that he won and I lost the fights. So, yeah, don't learn from me.
But I mean, in terms of getting a reaction from Jon, it's like anytime Israel does something, he gets a reaction from Jon. And Jon does the same thing with you. Like, anytime you say something, you see Jon react to it.
Yeah.
I think Israel looks at that and goes, well, I can get under his skin really easy. I just need to poke the right places and get him to react.
Well, I think you're looking at a new different type of athlete, right? Adesanya is one of the internet age kids, right? They go and find things and they say it. You know, it doesn't need to be proven as fact, but they will say it. And I think that annoys Jones. And honestly, man, like, I try not to say and talk about Jones much because it sounds like I don't like the guy, which I don't. But I'm not fighting anymore, right? So, but the reality is, like, there are the things that he has run into in terms of problems are very public. So it's easy pickings when it comes to Jones, and Adesanya is the type of guy that will use each and every one of them.
Hey, Daniel, over here on your left. It's good to see you.
I love your mask. Are you a wrestler?
I am a wrestler.
That's what I'm talking about. Lucha
You know,
Libre.
it's from San Jose. It's from Pro Wrestling Revolution, Kane's.
Oh, yeah, I trained there one time. I did a top. I wasn't very good.
I don't believe that. Do you take any back bumps?
I just jumped off the top rope, and it was awesome.
Onto who?
Just some guy that was in there.
Oh, poor guy. Did he live to tell about it?
He did.
All right.
But I mean, you know, there's an art to taking a bump, and he was a master of it.
I wanted to ask you, DC, the UFC Apex. You know, it's been so crucial for the UFC here in the States during the pandemic. From a broadcasting perspective, what do you like about working here?
You know, when the Apex first started holding fights, it was hard to feel the excitement, right? Because it's such a confined space that you didn't feel big fight week. They all kind of felt the same. But now it's changed because it's become a major factor in the fights. Now the Apex feels as if we're fighting at T-Mobile or at MGM. I think it's fantastic. I love the environment. I love the fights. I love the octagon size. There are so many different things and factors that play into why this has become one of the places that you recognize in and pinpoint as a fight place, and I love it. I love everything about it.
And then from a fighting perspective, because obviously you fought here in August, what was that like compared to, you know, a full arena?
Just different, you know, it's just different. Like I said, the octagon's a lot smaller, you know, and there are places where you would generally escape that you just don't. And I think that's why it plays, you know, not everybody's okay with that. So, but it is a difference. It's not even necessarily about the fans, because oddly, it gets kind of loud in there. Even though there's not as many people, it's still loud when you're in the octagon. You can hear everything. But you can hear the people yelling. I can't remember, I think it was Moreno versus Figueiredo. And I looked around like, how many people are in here? Because it sounded like the place was full, because people were just so excited about the action that was going on in front of them.
And just last thing, can you clear something up for us? You're not AEW's secret signing that's coming on Sunday, right?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, man. My back's so jacked up, man. I can't even wrestle if I wanted to. I can't wrestle to train for a fight. How am I going to do professional wrestling?
Any ideas on who it would be?
No idea. I saw Shaq the other day wrestling, so that was pretty cool.
What'd you think of that?
He did a good job. I think Shaq can do whatever he wants, man. The guy is just unbelievable in every single thing that he does. He's a great guy, great man, good friend of mine, and he just does fantastic work in whatever he chooses to do.
Would you have taken that table bump that he took?
Shaq's like 400 pounds, though, so like you don't have to even have a breakaway table. Shaq falls on the table, it breaks.
What happens if Daniel Cormier falls through a table?
I mean, had my weight today, it probably breaks.
Thanks, DC.
No worries.
DC over here.
Yeah.
I remember you saying you had actually trained with Adesanya long before he was the star he was today.
No, I asked him to train. I sent him a message. Rashad Evans put Adesanya and I in contact when I was going to fight Jones. This was before Izzy was the man. They said, there's this, Rashad's just like a very smart guy. He goes, there's a kid named The Last Stylebender, not in the UFC yet. You should reach out to him and see if he'll give you some sparring. And then initially I reached out to the guy. Me and Izzy started going messaging back and forth. And although not even in the UFC yet, and maybe his first fight, he didn't come though because he anticipated at some point fighting Luke Rockhold, right? So he had the forethought to not put himself in a situation where Luke would have eyes on him every single day. So I needed him, but he just had forethought. He was like, you know what? Down the line, I'm going to be in the championship picture, and I may see Luke Rockhold, so it's not best for me to go there, which is crazy because you're the champion asking the kid to come and train, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to be the champion one day, so I don't want to give away my secrets. It was great.
You obviously meet a lot of people doing the commentary, probably coming through AKA. When you first meet a guy like Israel Adesanya, do you sense that, you know what, this kid is special compared to the many you meet?
You know, some people have it. You know, like some people have it. Like it didn't take a genius to see Cain Velasquez was the man, or that Habib is the man. Like Israel Adesanya has that same type of vibe. It's like an aura about these guys. Like he walked in the day on the set of the weigh-in show, and I go, you know, you're breaking through, right? You're not just an MMA guy anymore. You're breaking through. I can feel it. I can see it. And he's one of those guys that just kind of has it.
Thank you.
No worries.
Real quick, thoughts on Dominic Cruz's return fight against Casey?
So excited to see Cruz in a fight situation. Listen, he processes information much quicker than most people. And he gave us a great answer in terms of the matchup with him and Casey. Great fight. Big spot for Casey Kenny. A chance to beat a former champion. But the last time we saw Dominic Cruz in this situation, on the prelims, coming back from a layoff, was when he destroyed Takeya Mizugaki. So Casey got to be ready from the moment they start fighting and expect to see vintage Dominic Cruz. I mean, the guy is as good and as smart as anybody in the game. He employs it in a way that not many people can. Okay.
One more question. Yeah. Hi there, DC. My name is Igor. I'm from Russia. Khabib is here. He will meet with Dana after tournament. I think Dana said that door's still open. What do you think about all this situation?
you know, if, like I said last time, if Habib agrees to see you and discuss it, you continue to do it. You continue to do it until eventually there's just no other option, because he's one of the biggest stars in the whole world. So you want him competing if you can get him to do it. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to fight, but I do know that if he doesn't fight, Islam Makhachev is a guy that does have potential to be the UFC champion. And you know, I have to try to stay as middle of the road as I can when I call these fights, because I have the utmost respect for Drew Dober. And so when my teammates fight, it's difficult. I will call this fight as I see it. But obviously, you know, teammates, friends, I wish him the best. Okay? Thank you, guys.
Are we on? Check. There we go. Hi.
Fagan, obviously a big UFC event, but a big fight in the Olivi household, I guess, as well. So what was the decision process to work this weekend, right? I mean, was that something you discussed or that was an option for you?
No, I mean, just I work pay-per-views, and he fights on pay-per-views, so we both work. I mean, I think a lot of people don't like that I do, like other wives and stuff. They're like, how do you do that? But it keeps me occupied. I actually really enjoy working when Joe fights because I have something else to focus on. So I'm actually like way calmer for this fight than I would be if I wasn't working, because that's all I have to think about. But I've been doing scripts and fight prep and studying and watching, you know, all different fights that it actually helps me handle the entire process, because it doesn't get easier for me. It actually gets a lot harder. Every fight is like, I'm more stressed and it's like crazier emotions for me. So it's a good distraction.
You're uniquely positioned to talk about it because you're a professional broadcaster and it's your loved one in there, right? I mean, how difficult is it? Because I don't think people necessarily understand how difficult it is to watch a loved one in there. Like, as much as we all love this sport, how difficult it is. So, I mean, what is that process like?
It's the person you love the most in the world, who you have watched sacrifice for months and do everything they can for this 15 or 25-minute period to go their way, and there's nothing you can do to help. It is the most helpless feeling ever, and like I said, I mean, Joe is the person I love the most in the world. He's the most important thing in my life, and to not have any control over the outcome and to just know how hard he has worked and all of these sacrifice and efforts that have been made, it's emotionally the most difficult thing I think I've had to do, you know, as a wife, certainly, and probably in life, one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do, because, yeah, I mean, there's also outside voices, right? So it's not just that, but it's then everybody in their opinion and DMs and this and that and Twitter, and it's so much that I just try and silence whatever I can, because I just can't handle it all.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, obviously your professionalism has never been a concern, but do you ask to, like, don't make me speak about his opponent, or, you know, don't make me do the walk-in intro for the opponent, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be awkward. Yeah, so I think that one is just covered with my bosses. But no, you know, it's never been really hard for me. I was his girlfriend back in the WEC. Long before people knew we were even dating. We were dating, we just hadn't made it public. And then once we told the Fertittas and Dana, and they were always so good about it, my thing was just to treat everyone like Joe. So, you know, whether it's an opponent or somebody from, I don't know, not that Joe has any rivals, I was going to say from a rival team, but that's not really a thing. But it's just about the way I approach things is that Joe's on the other side. Whether it's actually Joseph or not, I want their loved ones to feel that I gave them the respect I want my own husband to get when he's in that position, or when they're speaking about him, whatever it may be. So it's very important to me that even though, you know, for instance, the pay-per-view in December, sure, it wasn't like necessarily the people I would pick to speak about, you know, Figueiredo or whatever it may be, but I still want to pay him the respects and be the most professional I can be and recognize his achievements and speak to him again as if it was situations were reversed. And so it's important to me, and I know that Joe appreciates it too, because we always want to be as professional and, you know, just on that level. We always want to take the high road and things, and that's how I approach all of it.
Well, that's clearly the most important fight of the night, but there are 3 title fights happening as well.
Exactly.
Just curious, I mean, 3 title fights, each of them has such an interesting story, right? There's so much differences between them. Out of the 3, is there one that like just most captures your imagination or attention?
Yeah, I mean, I think seeing that face-off with the bantamweights, I was like, oh man, this has even more heat than maybe we recognized, but I am thrilled for this main event. I really am. I think Jan is maybe underrated sometimes in terms of how talented he is and what he brings to this matchup. And then how can you not love watching Stylebender all the time? And knowing that history is on the line there for Izzy, it adds something special to the matchup. So I'm intrigued by all 3 of them, but I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, how Jan comes out there and competes against a guy with a style like Israel, the speed of Israel, and really can history be captured once again.
And last thing for me, I mean, so much attention is being given to those 3 title fights. Are there any, you know, people that told you a story or matchups or anything on the prelims or undercard that maybe people aren't paying attention to that you think, hey man, keep an eye on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Dominic Cruz and Casey Kenny have gotten a fair amount of shine for their featured prelim spot, but I think that is going to be a really interesting matchup. There's a lot of ways this one can go, and I think it would be very telling for both of their careers and futures. But I'm also, it sounds like I just love the flyweight division, but I like the Tim Elliott-Espinoza matchup. I think that one, they're both very athletic. They're both unique wrestlers. I think that one could be a really fun one as well.
Hey, Megan, over to your left.
Hi.
How are you?
Great, how are you?
Good. I was wondering, what do you like about working here at the UFC Apex?
Well, that I can go home right after. I mean, for all of us that live in town, to be able to just drive home after the event in 20 minutes and grab some snacks on your way, that's probably what I like the most. But I love the intimate setting. I actually really enjoy it. Listen, you guys all know, there's nothing like, you know, a sold out arena and having the fans in there, but there is something special about this intimate setting and being able to hear the fighters if they're talking in the octagon, hear the cornermen so clearly, and really just take it all in, the emotions that come with it. They're very present here. There's no crowd to distract or no, you know, walkout path that they're all the way across the arena and you don't see them. You get to see every part of this. And I think for me, that's really special. It's also easier to navigate on fight night for somebody in my position, like physically, to be able to be in one position and then the next with 2 minutes in between. It does make things easier, but I love the Apex. I would not be mad if we had every fight at the Apex from now on.
Yeah, from like a broadcast perspective, because it's kind of like a one-stop shop, right?
Yes.
There are several studios around, so you can get a lot of work done in a few hours.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that studio is absolutely incredible. It is state of the art. It is beautiful. I mean, when you walk in there, you're just like, wow, I get to host a show in here. Like, it's that nice. But then you have the action right here. So to have a studio show where it's not off-site, you know, it's special. So if the desk analysts want to go sit octagon side, they can. Or the desk host can really be running into the athletes before or after they compete. It does add a layer to us to be able to say, hey, I saw the athlete 3 minutes ago or whatever it may be, plus actually be able to go from a world-class venue, which is inside there with the octagon, to a studio, to even like the viewing area on the second floor. It's all amazing.
When you're doing your stand-ups when fighters are walking out, you know, there's no crowd in here, so can they hear you? Have they ever said anything like, oh, I heard what you were saying?
No, I actually have never thought about that. Now I'm gonna be nervous. Thanks. Yeah. Wow. No, but they actually, when I do rehearsals, it's on the TV screens everywhere, and I didn't know that until a fighter told me that they heard me doing their walkout rehearsal hit. They loved it, so it made me feel good. But you know, I never thought about that. I think maybe the walkout music drowns me out. Let's hope.
I think so. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks.
Megan over here.
Hi.
Haven't done this for a while. You know, there's a lot of emotions, win or lose, and you've been there for so many post-fight interviews, either with Joseph or anyone else. Have you ever had a fighter's team just be like, you know what, Megan Olivi, I felt like you were being biased. I felt like you were rooting for the other one.
Never. I've literally never had that. I think probably all of you here know that I don't really conduct myself in that way. Joseph doesn't conduct himself in that way. I think if I was married to somebody who competed on the roster and maybe wasn't as well liked or well respected as my husband Joseph is, it would be different. But he kind of minds his own business. He says hi to everybody. You know, he likes everybody, he respects everybody. So it's never been a problem. I mean, you're going back from WC, like, you know, even him and Dominic Cruz when they fought, and Dom had a rivalry with Team Alpha Male, which Joe was on at the time. He and Joe were super cool, and they always have been since then. And I think it just is a difference maker that, you know, I handle myself professionally, but also that Joseph does as well.
I think a lot of fans have always wondered, what is that moment like when Joseph has fought, you're working the event, and let's say, for example, Demetrius Johnson, he just beat Joe, and you talk to him. Just what's that experience kind of like? What's that interaction?
Well, I mean, it's one I don't like to think about, but I haven't actually had to do that. I have never had to be in that position. So, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, every time I work and Joe fights, he wins. So it's been, I've never had to like be in a position where someone just beat him and I had to do a post-fight. So I hope that does not happen on Saturday either.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great.
Hi.
Real quick, thoughts on just Dominic Cruz's return in general? As a fellow broadcaster, you're watching him make the walk in.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for his return. Dominic does his homework, and I think that's what makes him a good fighter and a good broadcaster. He does watch all the film, and he's learning, and he's growing, and he's taking things away from what other people are doing, and he's implementing that into his game. I'm excited to see how he returns. I actually really like that position on the card for him because I feel like, you know, it's ESPN, it's a huge platform, but without the added pressure of having to be, you know, and I don't know if Dominic feels this way, but, you know, to not have to have the, you know, a title on the line or, kick off the pay-per-view, right, or whatever it may be. I think it's a lower pressure scenario, which all he has done is fought for a belt for, God, how many years now? So I think it's a great position, and it allows for a lot of different things that maybe a main event or a title fight wouldn't. Thanks, guys.